"You'll be in a nursing home by next month, Dad." Those were my daughter's words, the same little girl I once rocked to sleep. I smiled that day, but inside, something cracked wide open. The phone rang just as I scraped the last of the leftover stew from my plate. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me what would you do if your own child said that to you. Ellen's stew recipe. Though mine never tasted quite right without her touch, my late wife had a way of turning even plain beef into something that warmed the soul. Now, the kitchen felt too big, the walls too quiet. When I glanced at the caller ID, I smiled despite myself. Caitlin, my only daughter, my reason for everything. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, easing back into Ellen's old recliner, the one she used to sit in every evening, reading her mystery novels. "Just finished dinner. How's Phoenix treating you?" Her laugh came through the line, bright and practiced. "Oh, you know, another conference, another hotel room. Jeremy's handling the client dinners, while I survive PowerPoint hell." I chuckled softly. "You always did hate those corporate meetings." "Yeah, well, bills don't pay themselves." Then her tone softened. "Dad, how are you really doing?" I hesitated. There were things I could have said, about the nights I sat awake listening to the house creak, about the mornings I spoke to Ellen's picture. But instead I said, "I'm fine, honey. Just a little tired lately. Forgot to turn off the coffee pot yesterday. Nearly burned the house down." There was a pause. "Dad," her voice carried that sharpness that used to belong to her mother, "you can't live alone forever. Maybe we should talk about getting some help, a nurse, or—" "Caitlin," I interrupted gently, "I'm managing. Don't worry about me." But she didn't sound convinced. "I'll talk to Jeremy about it," she said quietly. I smiled faintly. "Talk to him about your business trip instead. That's what matters right now." We said our goodbyes, the way we always did. She said, "Love you," and I said it back, even though I wasn't sure she still felt it the same way. Then I heard the sound that would change everything. A click, then muffled voices. She hadn't hung up. Jeremy's voice came through, low and cold. "You see how he's deteriorating? Forgetting the stove? Burning things? It's time." My breath caught. Caitlin sighed. "I know, but it feels wrong. He's my dad." "Your dad's a good man," Jeremy said smoothly. "But he's a burden now. The house is worth almost $1 million. We could sell it, move into something modern, near the office. You said yourself. Denver's market is hot. We could get 900,000, maybe more." Silence. Then Caitlin's voice again. Smaller this time. "He'd never agree. That's why," Jeremy said. "We don't give him the choice." My world tilted. My daughter's laughter now felt like a knife. I set the phone down quietly, my heart hammering. The stew turned to ash in my mouth. I looked across the living room at Ellen's framed photo. "Did we raise her wrong?" I whispered. "Did I?" That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, listening to the clock tick. The words replaying over and over. "He's a burden. We don't give him the choice." By morning, I'd made a decision. If my daughter wanted me gone, she would soon realize she'd underestimated the old man she was ready to throw away. I woke up before dawn the next morning. The house was silent except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the steady tick of Ellen's kitchen clock. I'd barely slept. My thoughts had turned in circles all night. Back to Caitlin's laughter through that phone. Jeremy's voice calling me a burden. The sky outside was still indigo when I poured myself a cup of coffee. My hands trembled slightly as I lifted the mug. I used to tell Caitlin that life had a way of testing your patience right before it rewarded your faith. But that morning, I felt no faith, only clarity. If they were planning to take my home, the place I built, paid for, loved in, grieved in, then I would let them think they could. I'd raised a smart daughter, but she'd forgotten one thing. She learned that cunning from me. By 9 a.m., I was at my lawyer's office. The brass letters on the glass door still read, Harper and Lewis Legal, though only one name mattered now. "Mr. Harper," I said as I stepped inside. Charles Harper had been my friend for 30 years. He'd drawn up the deed for this house when Ellen and I bought it. He handled my retirement investments, even helped Caitlin with her student loans back when she called him Uncle Charlie. He looked up from his desk, glasses perched on his nose. "George, you're up early. What brings you here?" I sat down, folding my hands on my lap. I need to make a few adjustments to my estate. He leaned back, watching me carefully. Everything all right? Not exactly, I said quietly. I think my daughter's planning to put me in a nursing home, then sell my house. Charles sighed, nodding slowly. I've seen this before. Families, money, control. It's always the same story. Not this time, I said. I want to change my will. Everything goes into a trust. Caitlin won't be able to sell a thing without my consent. And when I'm gone, the property transfers to the Veterans Assistance Fund, in Ellen's name. He blinked. You're sure? I'm sure, I interrupted. If my daughter wants my house, she'll have to fight for it, and she'll lose. Charles studied me for a long moment. You're planning something, George. I can see it in your eyes. Let's just say, I murmured, I'm preparing for a visit from the very people who think I'm too old to see through them. That afternoon, I made my house look exactly the way Jeremy would expect. Slightly disorganized. A few unpaid bills left on the counter. Medication bottles conveniently scattered near the sink. I even let dust collect on the mantel. Then I called Caitlin. Hey, sweetheart, I said, feigning a cough. I think I might take your advice. Maybe a little help around the house wouldn't hurt. She sounded relieved. Almost too relieved. Dad, that's great. Jeremy and I were actually talking about this last night. There's a wonderful assisted living community just outside of Denver. You'll love it there. I smiled into the silence. Is that so? Yes, they have medical staff, activities, everything. We can visit you every weekend. Visit, as if I were a museum exhibit. Well, I said softly, maybe we can meet tomorrow to talk about it. Here, I'd like you to bring Jeremy. Tomorrow, her voice rose slightly. I don't know if make the time, I said. I'll have coffee ready. The next morning, I watched their car pull into the driveway. A black SUV I'd helped them buy 2 years ago when Jeremy's business hit a rough patch. They stepped out looking like the perfect couple. My daughter in her beige blazer and her husband in that smug, expensive smile. Dad, Caitlin said as she walked up the steps. You look good. I held the door open. Come in. We've got a lot to discuss. They followed me into the living room. The air smelled faintly of old coffee. I'd made sure of it. So, Jeremy began, sitting forward, elbows on his knees. We've done some research. The facility in question has great reviews. It's private, comfortable, and well, frankly, it's safer for someone your age. I nodded slowly. And how much does it cost? He smiled. About $8,000 a month. But once we sell the house, I set my coffee down. Ah, there it is. Jeremy's grin faltered. Excuse me? The sale, I said quietly. That's what this is really about. You two want my house. You think you're entitled to it. Caitlin frowned. Dad, don't make this about money. We're trying to help you. I looked at her for a long moment, studying her face. Help me? I said softly. By erasing my life and locking me away? Dad, you're being dramatic. No, I said, standing. You're being greedy. The silence between us was thick enough to choke on. Then I smiled faintly. I tell you what, why don't we make it official? Come by next week. I'll have the lawyer over. We'll settle everything properly. Jeremy blinked. You'll sign the papers? I looked him dead in the eye. Oh, I'll sign something, all right. As they left, Caitlin hugged me quickly, her perfume sharp and unfamiliar. You're doing the right thing, Dad. Trust me. I watched their car disappear down the road and whispered to Ellen's photo. Trust. Not anymore. That night, I poured myself a whiskey and sat by the window, watching the moon rise over the quiet street. Next week, my daughter would walk into this house with her lawyer and her lies, and I would be waiting with mine. The following Thursday arrived, bright and cold. The kind of day where the sunlight looks warm, but the air bites when you breathe. I woke up early, shaved, put on my best shirt, the same one I wore to Caitlin's wedding, and brewed a fresh pot of coffee. The house looked spotless, calm, almost welcoming, but every surface hid the tension crackling underneath. At precisely 10 o'clock, the sound of tires on gravel broke the silence. I glanced through the window. Caitlin and Jeremy were stepping out of the SUV again. But this time, they weren't alone. A third figure followed, a woman in a dark suit carrying a leather briefcase. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement, every step radiating confidence. So, they brought a lawyer. Good. I opened the door before they could knock. Morning, I said evenly. You're right on time. Jeremy's smirk was already in place. Dad, this is Allison Reed from Weston and Hale. She's helping us handle the paperwork. Allison smiled politely, the kind of professional expression that said she'd done this before, probably too many times. Mr. Walker, thank you for agreeing to meet. I just need your signature on a few authorization forms before we proceed with the property transfer. I raised an eyebrow. Property transfer? Caitlin stepped forward, her voice syrupy sweet. Dad, remember we talked about this? It's just the legal step for selling the house. You'll have full care at the facility, and we'll handle everything for you. Of course, I said. I motioned toward the living room. Come in. They followed me inside, the air smelling faintly of coffee and lemon polish. I gestured toward the couch, the same one Ellen and I bought 40 years ago. Caitlin and Jeremy sat together, hands intertwined. The lawyer set her briefcase on the coffee table. Before we begin, Allison said, opening the file, I'll just need to verify your consent, Mr. Walker. Once you sign, ownership of the property will be transferred to your daughter and her husband. It's a fairly straightforward. Actually, I interrupted, before I sign anything, there's someone else joining us today. Jeremy frowned. Someone else? I nodded. My lawyer. And right on cue, a firm knock came from the front door. Caitlin's smile faltered as Charles Harper stepped in, crisp in his gray suit, his presence calm but commanding. Good morning, he said pleasantly, offering a hand to Allison. Charles Harper, representing Mr. Walker. Jeremy's expression darkened. You didn't mention bringing anyone, Dad. Neither did you, I replied. The air shifted. The room grew smaller. Charles took a seat across from Allison, opening his own folder. Now, before my client signs anything, I'd like to clarify a few matters about the property's current ownership and estate terms. Allison adjusted her papers. This home is listed under Mr. Walker's name. He's transferring it to his daughter as part of an early inheritance. Charles smiled faintly. That's interesting, because as of last week, Mr. Walker's estate was legally restructured. This property is now held under the Walker Family Trust, with Mr. Walker as the sole trustee. Jeremy blinked. Wait, what? Charles continued, unfazed. Which means, legally speaking, no one, including your client's daughter, can sell, transfer, or modify ownership without Mr. Walker's explicit written approval. Not now, not ever. Caitlin's hand slipped from Jeremy's. That's impossible, Allison said quickly. We checked the records yesterday. Then you should check them again, Charles said coolly, sliding a stamped document across the table, filed and recorded 3 days ago with the county clerk's office. Jeremy's face turned red. You think you can just? I think, I said, leaning forward, that I can protect what's mine. Caitlin's voice trembled. Dad, what are you doing? What I should have done the moment your mother passed, I said quietly. You thought I was losing my mind, but I wasn't the one scheming. Her eyes filled with disbelief. I was trying to help you. Help me, I snapped, the calm cracking. By calling me a burden? By planning to sell my home the moment I was out of the way? I heard every word, Caitlin. Every damn word. Her lips parted in shock. You listened to that call. Yes, I said, and it's the best mistake you ever made. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Jeremy slammed his fist against the table. You're unbelievable, old man. After everything we've done for you. Charles raised a hand. Careful what you say, Mr. Peterson. I'm recording this meeting. Jeremy froze. You can't do this, Caitlin said, her voice breaking. You can't just. I already did, I said. This house isn't yours. It never will be. And as for that nursing home, I found someone who does need it. The donation forms are already signed. You'll find your name listed nowhere. That was the moment her composure cracked. Her face flushed crimson, her voice rising to a shriek. You can't just take everything from me. Oh, sweetheart, I said softly, standing. I didn't take anything from you. You tried to take it from me. Her chair scraped violently against the floor as she shot up. You think you can punish me like a child? Fine, keep your stupid house. Rot in it for all I care. Gladly, I said. It's more peaceful without snakes inside. Caitlin's breath came fast, her eyes wild. Jeremy muttered something under his breath, grabbed her wrist and dragged her toward the door. The lawyer followed silently, clutching her briefcase like a shield. When the door slammed behind them, silence filled the house again. Charles sighed. "You all right, George?" I nodded, staring at Ellen's photo on the mantel. "I am now, but deep down, I knew. This wasn't the end. Because you don't strip pride from a greedy heart without consequences." And I could feel it in my bones. Caitlin wasn't done with me yet. For 3 days after the lawyer's visit, the house was eerily quiet. No phone calls, no messages, not even one of Caitlin's carefully worded texts. At first I thought she might just need time to cool down. Maybe some part of her still loved me enough to feel shame. But on the 4th morning, I realized I'd been wrong. When I opened my mailbox, the envelopes told the story before I even tore them open. 2 credit cards canceled, my internet suspended, a letter from the utility company claiming my account holder had changed, and tucked beneath the pile, a glossy flyer with the words, "Golden Pines Assisted Living, your new home awaits." Caitlin's handwriting covered the bottom corner. "See you soon, Dad." I stared at the words until they blurred. The betrayal didn't sting this time. It burned slow, deep like acid under the skin. Jeremy was behind this. I knew it. But Caitlin had signed her name on the paper. They'd started their counterattack. That night, I poured myself a whiskey. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd helped Caitlin with her homework, taught her to balance a checkbook. I listened to her cry over her first heartbreak. I remembered Ellen's voice in the back of my head. "When she hurts you, don't harden your heart. George, teach her." So I decided I would. Just not the lesson Ellen had in mind. The next morning, I called Charles Harper again. "Charlie," I said, "I need you to help me sell my house." He nearly dropped his pen. "Sell it, after everything you did to protect it." I smiled. "Oh, I'm not selling it to Caitlin. I'm selling it to someone who deserves it, and I need it done quickly, before she realizes what's happening." He frowned. "George, that's a big move. You sure about this?" "I've never been sure of anything," I said. "But I need one favor. Anything. I want the sale to close quietly. No public listing. No fanfare. When Caitlin comes sniffing around again, I want her to find nothing but dust." Charles nodded slowly. "Consider it done." 2 weeks later, Caitlin's car pulled up again. The tires crunched against the gravel like a warning drum. I stood at the doorway waiting. She was dressed in a tailored coat this time, her face perfectly composed, eyes masked behind those sunglasses she only wore when she wanted to look untouchable. "Dad," she said coolly, "I need to talk to you." "About what?" "The nursing home," she said. "They called. They said you haven't filled out the paperwork yet." "Funny," I said, "because I don't recall asking them to call you." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You're making this harder than it has to be." "No, Caitlin," I said softly. "You are." She crossed her arms. "You know what? I tried. I tried to make this easy. Jeremy and I even arranged a moving service for you. They're coming Monday morning." I raised an eyebrow. "To move what, exactly?" "The furniture, your clothes, the essentials. The rest we'll deal with after the sale." I smiled faintly. "You mean the sale that already happened?" Her face twitched. "What are you talking about?" "The house," I said, leaning on my cane. "It's sold, closed last Friday." For the first time, her mask cracked. "You what?" "I told you, sweetheart," I said. "I signed something. Just not what you expected." She took a step closer, her voice rising. "You sold my inheritance? To who?" "That's the thing about inheritances," I said quietly. "You have to earn them." Her voice became a shriek. "You can't do this. That house was supposed to be mine." "No," I said. "It was never yours. It was your mother's dream, and you tried to turn it into a transaction." She glared at me, shaking her head. "You've gone senile. You'll regret this when you're alone and begging for help." I didn't flinch. "Maybe, but at least I'll know the people around me aren't waiting for me to die." She stormed off the porch, muttering curses. But halfway down the steps, she turned and hissed, "You think you've won, old man? You have no idea what's coming." Then she was gone. That night, I sat in the dark again, whiskey in hand. The old house creaked around me like it was alive. Some part of me hoped she'd come back, not out of hate, but remorse. That she'd walk through the door like she used to when she was 8. Eyes red, voice small, whispering, "I'm sorry, Daddy." But that girl was gone. In her place stood a woman shaped by greed, sharpened by pride, and I had just taken away her favorite weapon. Still, something deep in my gut told me this wasn't over. The next day, I'd find out just how far my daughter was willing to go. Because when the police came knocking that night, lights flashing, faces grim, I realized Caitlin hadn't just lost her inheritance. She wanted to take my freedom too. The flashing red and blue lights painted my living room walls in dizzying streaks. I opened the door slowly, heart pounding in my chest, to find 2 uniformed officers standing on my porch. The taller one, his badge catching the porch light, gave me a polite but cautious nod. "Mr. George Walker?" "That's me," I said. "Is something wrong, officers?" The younger one glanced at his clipboard before speaking. "We received a report of elder neglect and possible mental incapacity. There's a welfare check order filed in your name. Said you were unable to care for yourself." My breath caught. "Filed by who?" "Your daughter, Caitlin Peterson." For a moment, everything inside me went still. I should have expected this, but hearing her name, my daughter's name, tied to a report accusing me of incompetence, cut deeper than any words she'd said before. The older officer's tone softened. "Mind if we come in, sir?" I stepped aside, keeping my voice calm. "Of course, come in." They walked through the entryway, scanning the house. The place smelled faintly of coffee and lemon polish, the same way it had the day Caitlin stormed out. I gestured toward the kitchen. "Help yourselves to coffee if you'd like. I just brewed a fresh pot." The younger one smiled awkwardly. "That's very kind of you, sir." They began asking questions, routine ones at first, about medication, diet, living conditions. Then the older officer's tone shifted. "Your daughter says you've been forgetting things, that you left the stove on twice last week. Burned food, missed bills." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Did she also mention she hasn't visited in months until she wanted to sell the house?" He blinked. "She said, 'You've been refusing help, sir, that you're unstable.'" "Unstable," I repeated softly. "That's what she's calling it now." I walked to the mantel, picked up Ellen's photograph, and traced the edge of the frame with my thumb. My late wife and I built this life together. When she died, I kept everything going alone. My daughter doesn't like that I managed without her. It ruins her narrative. The younger officer exchanged a look with the older one, who scribbled something on his notepad. "Sir, do you have any documentation showing you're managing your finances, bills, prescriptions, that sort of thing?" I smiled faintly. "Do I ever?" I opened the drawer under the hall table and pulled out a thick folder. Everything neatly arranged: bank statements, paid utility bills, mortgage receipts, insurance policies, and the newest document of all, the Walker Family Trust certification, signed by the county clerk. I placed it gently on the table between them. "Does this look like the work of a man who's lost his mind?" The older officer studied the papers, his expression shifting from skepticism to quiet respect. "No, sir," he said finally, "it doesn't." The younger one hesitated. "We still have to follow up on the complaint." "But—" "I understand," I said. "But when you do, make sure you note that. My daughter filed this after I legally protected my property. That timing might tell you more than any doctor's note could." He nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. We'll note that." When they left, I stood in the doorway, watching the cruiser roll down the street. The cold air stung my face, but I didn't move. My hands trembled. Not from fear, but from something darker. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was war. The next morning, I called Charles again. "She filed a false report," I said. "Tried to paint me as unfit." He sighed heavily. "I'll have my assistant look into it. We'll need to document everything." "I already did," I said. "And Charles, make sure she gets served." He paused. "Served? Yes," I said quietly. "If she wants to take her father to court, then she can face him there." 3 weeks passed before the court summons arrived. I could almost picture Caitlin's face when she realized I wasn't cowering in a nursing home, but walking into that courtroom, cane in hand, suit pressed, eyes clear and steady. The hearing was brief. The judge, A gray-haired woman with no patience for melodrama listened to both sides. Caitlin wept, the kind of tears that looked practiced, while Jeremy sat beside her, jaw tight. "Your Honor," she said, voice trembling, "my father has been declining for months. He's paranoid, confused, and refuses help. I'm just trying to do what's best for him." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Peterson, your father's medical records show no sign of cognitive impairment. The doctor's note attached to your filing appears unsigned. And the claim of unpaid bills." She turned to me. "Mr. Walker, do you have proof of payment?" I handed over my folder. "Every one of them, ma'am. Paid early, even." The judge flipped through them, her expression unreadable. Finally, she looked at Caitlin. "Mrs. Peterson, do you understand that filing a false statement with this court can be considered perjury?" Caitlin froze. I was just trying to protect him." "From what?" the judge asked. "Financial independence? Sanity?" Jeremy leaned forward. "Your Honor, this has been blown out of proportion." "Quiet, Mr. Peterson," the judge said sharply. "You're not counsel here." The silence that followed was electric. Caitlin's tears dried instantly. She stared at me, her face pale, her voice trembling with fear now. The judge continued, "All claims of incapacity are dismissed. The court finds no evidence that Mr. Walker is unable to care for himself. Mrs. Peterson, I strongly suggest you reconsider your priorities before you lose more than your father's trust." Her gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed in my bones. Caitlin stood there frozen like a child caught stealing cookies from the jar. Jeremy's face twisted into something ugly, but he said nothing. As I turned to leave, I paused beside them. "I told you," I said softly, "you shouldn't underestimate old men with good lawyers." Outside the courthouse, the autumn wind carried the faint scent of burning leaves. I tilted my face to the sun, feeling warmth I hadn't felt in months. But as I walked toward my car, I heard her voice behind me, low, broken, trembling. "Dad." I stopped, my hand on the door handle. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "Don't hate me. I just wanted security. I didn't want to lose everything." I turned to her. Her mascara had smudged. She looked more like the little girl who used to fall asleep on Ellen's lap than the woman who'd tried to take everything from me. "You already did, Caitlin," I said softly. "You lost your mother's house. And if you're not careful, you'll lose your father too." She stepped forward, tears brimming, but I got into the car and closed the door. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stopped begging to be loved by someone who only saw me as a bank account. 2 months passed. Winter arrived early that year, a quiet gray blanket over the neighborhood, softening even the jagged edges of old grief. The maple trees in the yard stood bare now, their branches scratching at the December sky. For the first time in years, I didn't decorate. No wreath on the door, no garland on the mantel. Ellen's old ornaments stayed boxed in the attic, waiting for hands that wouldn't tremble. But I wasn't lonely. The silence that once crushed me now felt like a kind of peace, earned, steady, deserved. Until the letter arrived. It came on a Thursday, tucked among the bills and catalogs. My name was written in Caitlin's handwriting, neat, deliberate, the same way she used to write her thank you notes after birthdays. I stood at the counter for a long time before I opened it. "Dad, I don't know if you'll even read this. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. You were right about everything. About Jeremy, about me, about what greed does when it takes root. He's gone. Left 3 weeks ago, said he couldn't deal with the embarrassment. Took our savings with him. I thought money would make me safe. Instead, it made me hollow. I see it now. What I did to you wasn't about concern. It was control. I'm so ashamed, Dad. I've moved into a small apartment. It's nothing like what we had, but it's the first place that feels like mine in years. If you can find it in your heart to see me, even once, I'd give anything just to sit with you and talk. No lawyers, no papers, just your daughter. Love, Caitlin." My hands trembled slightly as I set the letter down. For the first time since this whole storm began, I didn't feel anger. I felt something heavier. Sadness. Memory. Because beneath all the pride and cruelty, she was still that little girl in Ellen's blue sweater, holding my hand. That Sunday, I drove to the return address on the envelope, a small apartment complex on the west side of town. Peeling paint, faded curtains, the kind of place people pass without noticing. When she opened the door, the shock on her face said she hadn't believed I'd come. "Dad," she whispered. I smiled faintly. "You gonna let me in, or are we having this reunion in the hallway?" Her eyes filled instantly. She stepped aside. The apartment was sparsely furnished, a couch, a second-hand lamp, a box half unpacked in the corner. "I wasn't sure you'd ever talk to me again," she said, voice trembling. "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. "But your letter sounded like someone my wife would have wanted me to visit." At that she broke. Tears spilled freely now, shoulders shaking. "I ruined everything, Dad. You and Mom, you gave me everything, and I threw it away." I walked closer, slower than I used to, my cane tapping softly on the worn carpet. "You lost your way," I said gently, "but you didn't ruin everything. You're still breathing. That means you get another chance." She covered her face. "I don't deserve one." "Maybe not," I said, "but love isn't about deserving. Your mother used to say that all the time." Her sobs quieted. She looked up at me, eyes swollen, makeup gone. "I miss her." "So do I whispered. We sat down together on the couch, the space between us, small but full of everything we'd both left unsaid for too long. For a while neither of us spoke. The radiator hissed softly, the faint smell of burnt dust in the air. Outside, snow began to fall, slow, deliberate, like forgiveness. Finally, Caitlin said, "Dad, would you ever come home for Christmas?" "Just once. I'll cook. I'll decorate. I want to try again." I studied her face. There was no deceit there this time, just a fragile hope and the fear of hearing no. "I'll think about it," I said. "But you come to me first. We'll start there. My kitchen still makes a decent cup of coffee." She let out a small laugh through her tears. "Deal." That Christmas morning, Caitlin came by. No Jeremy, no car full of paperwork. Just her, holding a pie she'd baked herself, her hands still clumsy with the crust, like her mother's. We ate in quiet laughter and small talk, awkward at first, then easier. When she reached across the table to squeeze my hand, I didn't pull away. Because forgiveness isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about choosing what part of love you want to carry forward. And as I watched her smile again, real, unguarded, I knew Ellen would have been proud. Betrayal can break blood, but forgiveness can rebuild family. Don't wait for a courtroom or a lawyer to find peace. Call someone you love today, and before you go, don't forget to subscribe and share this story if it touched your heart.